As Gilderoy Lockheart once said, celebrity is as celebrity does. We have no idea what that actually means, but Lockhart was a celebrity himself, and was a bit loony, so he probably knew what he was talking about, I think. The point is, celebrities, like the rest of us, are prone to making strange decisions. The difference is that when they do it, it gets documented for the world to see and ridicule. I, of course, would never contribute to such disrespectful behaviour. At least I normally wouldn't, if it weren't for the fact that some of those strange decisions involve endorsing truly weird video games. They're not all bad, of course. Tony Hawk, John Madden, the Beatles, and more have all put their names to games with a great deal of success. In some other cases, though, well, let me just assure you that all 10 of these games are real, I promise. I just wish that all 10 of them weren't real. I'm Peter from TripleJump, and here are the 10 weirdest celebrity-endorsed video games. Number 10. Hoff Zombie Beach. David the Hoff Hasselhoff has made many questionable decisions across his storied career. His reality show, his musical dabblings, the SpongeBob movie. Actually, scratch that last one, that was an Oscar-worthy performance. Otherwise, though, questionable decisions all around. One such decision came in 2014, when he launched Hoff Zombie Beach. In this mobile game, players take control of a very strapping lifeguard, slaughtering waves of the undead who, I assume, are just after an ice cream or something. Bit harsh, Dave. The game includes nods to some of his most famous TV roles, and even features some definitely unlicensed cameos of some of his old co-stars. Pamela Anderson's lawyers will see you now, Mr. the Hoff. If you're wondering why you aren't seeing any actual gameplay footage right now, well, we're not sure anyone ever actually played it, and it's been removed from the App Store, so I can't play it either. I'm heartbroken, I assure you. Regardless, Hoff Zombie Beach seems like it was at least a harmless way to pass some time on the toilet, and I'm sure that is exactly the vision the great man himself had in the first place. This could only come from the mind of the man who single-handedly felled the Berlin Wall. Number 9. Michael Phelps pushed the limit. Oh yeah, here we go. That's not my catchphrase. Athletes and video games can either go together like peanut butter and jelly. That's what they call it in America, isn't it? Or like peanut butter and nitroglycerin. Do they have that in America as well? I don't know. One case of the latter is Michael Phelps Push the Limit. Endorsed by the 28-time Olympic medalist, Michael Phelps Push the Limit is disappointingly not a limit-pushing simulator. It is, however, a swimming simulator. That's not a phrase you hear very often in video games, and there's a good reason for that. Whilst swimming is an incredibly intense sport that requires years of training to master, it's not what many people would call exciting. That might explain why swimming and video games very rarely match up, unless you include the swimming parts of Mario and Sonic at the Olympics, or the water temple in Ocarina of Time, and we all know how people feel about that. Add in the fact that this game uses Kinect controls, meaning that nobody could control it at all.
They suck.
And the end result was a slow, dull, broken experience that left gamers feeling less like Michael Phelps and more like seeing the guy next to you relieve himself in the local swimming pool. Number 8. NSYNC, get to the show! Yes, I am going to shout every subtitle that sounds like it needs to be shouted, and I'm also going to play that clip from The Simpsons. And no, you cannot stop me on either.
I'm wearing a bathrobe, and I'm not even sick.
Marvellous. Anyway, Wikipedia informs me that NSYNC were incredibly popular.
Word.
The band gave us the likes of Justin Timberlake and, Justin Timberlake's friends. Regardless, they sold more than 70 million records in the 7 years they were together, and that's impressive.
Word.
Less impressive, though, is their video game. In 2001's NSYNC Get to the Show, you essentially play as the band's tour manager. If that sounds in any way glamorous to you, the game quickly corrects your misunderstanding. You basically run errands for the band, taking them to the post office, making them burgers, and playing hacky sack with them. You know, none of the fun stuff that comes to mind when you think about hanging out with pop stars.
Word.
I don't have the figures on how well this game sold, but considering it was only available on the Game Boy Color and you can still buy a new copy for less than $10, it's safe to say that JT and the the gang should have stuck to music, I think. Number 7. 8-Bit Rebellion! There's an exclamation mark, I have to shout that one too. From the title alone, you'd be forgiven for thinking there was zero celebrity involvement in this game. Unless perhaps it conjures up images of tiny sprites of Lenin and Gandhi. Oh man, now I really want to play that game. 8-Bit Rebellion is a mobile game featuring the music and members of angsty teenage mainstays Linkin Park. The game's plot revolves around Pixel Corp, an evil company that has stolen one of Mr. Park's songs, and the band's quest is to get it back. The game takes place across 6 environments, modelled after the 6 members of Linkin Park. Gameplay is fairly standard, considering it's a mobile title, but the real appeal lies in its soundtrack, which features chiptune versions of some of the band's biggest hits, and a brand new song written solely for this game. 8-Bit Rebellion didn't review all that well, but it's not a bad game by any stretch. The band worked closely with developer Artificial Life to produce the title, so it's clear they were passionate about giving their fans the best experience possible. Sadly, I have to stop talking about this game though. My mom is telling me to clean my room. Up yours, Mom! No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean it. Number 6. What's Cooking? With Jamie Oliver. If there are 2 things we know about here at Team TripleJump, it's video games and cooking. But what about video games centered around cooking? Well, beyond a certain maternal figure, our experience is limited.
Microwave?
Step forward then, Jamie Oliver, to bestow his wisdom upon me just as he bestows the high street with mediocre Italian restaurants. Yeah, I said it. Come at me, Jamie.
Kids' food should be healthy!
What's Cooking with Jamie Oliver released for the Nintendo DS in 2008, and no, your eyes do not deceive you. This game was published by Atari. Does this mean we'll finally be getting the long-awaited Jamie Oliver/Pong crossover? Oh, I sure hope so. While we wait though, we'll have to settle for What's Cooking, and that's a shame because it sucks. This game is about as generic as you can get. You follow recipes, perform tasks using the touchscreen, and share the end result with friends with the booming, godlike voice of Jamie narrating your every move and probably judging you for what you had for tea last night.
Why isn't it healthy?
The game was well stocked with over 100 recipes and the ability to create your own, but it didn't click for consumers, and the game was pulled from shelves faster than turkey Twizzlers were mercilessly axed from my school dinners. I still haven't forgiven him for that. Number 5. Prince Interactive. To call the late musical genius Prince eccentric is a bit like calling the ocean wet, or the Playboy game not safe for work. It's bleeding obvious. The artist formerly known as Prince released a wide range of music and movies during his life, and earned a reputation as one out there dude. That reputation is only helped by this 1994 video game. Prince Interactive takes players on a virtual tour of the Purple One's Paisley Park estate, and features dozens of songs, music videos, and interviews from fellow musicians. There isn't much to complain about here if you're a Prince fan. Several of the songs were previously unreleased, and you could even remix some of the tracks using an in-game mixing desk. Sort of. It was 1994, cut it some slack. For a man as intensely private as Prince was, this game allows a rare glimpse into his world. Was it the most successful thing Prince ever did? No. Was it the weirdest thing he ever did? Absolutely not. But for a man as acclaimed and bonkers as he was, it's still impressively odd. Number 4. Go! Beckham! Adventure on Soccer Island. Those are some weirdly placed exclamation marks there. Win the Premier League. Captain your country. Become a model. Marry a Spice Girl. Get bad tattoos. Is there anything David Beckham hasn't done? The soccer star has appeared in numerous video games, mostly the FIFA series, granted, but there's nothing weird about that. What is weird is he also starred in his own platformer. Go, Beckham, Adventure on Soccer Island may sound like a strange Japanese knockoff title, but it was solely released in Europe for the Game Boy Advance in 2002. The game is a Mario clone that sees our hero fight his way through the titular Soccer Island, defeating monsters with his trusty football on his way to doing battle with the game's villain, Mr. Woe. That's woe as in misery, not as in, whoa, I can't believe David Beckham's hair used to look like that. Incredibly, the game reviewed quite well, with one outlet naming it the best original platformer on the GBA this year. I don't know how honest it is to call the title original, considering it's just Mario but with a football, but you get the idea. Go Beckham Adventure on Soccer Island might be a bizarre artifact and a downright pain in the rear to say, but it is further proof that Bex can do no wrong. Or can't he? What are you hiding, David? I won't rest until I find out. Number 3, Tres Lunas and Maestro. Okay, total honesty here. If it weren't for the fact that most of you will have only heard of Mike Oldfield because you accidentally stumbled across Tubular Bells whilst rummaging through your parents' CD collection, then these two weird-ass games would absolutely have topped this list. Musician Mike Oldfield has been toying with the idea of combining music and virtual reality since the 90s, but most of his ideas were not supported by the technology of the time. Home computers eventually got more powerful, however, and in 2002, Oldfield decided he had waited long enough and released the first of his music VR games. Titled Tres Lunas, Oldfield's game consists of the player flying around a VR landscape and collecting golden rings. Each ring unlocks a new piece of music, and the game can be played online by up to 13 people. Extra players could still join in though to observe the action, if you can call it that. A sequel called Maestro was released in 2004 and followed a similar format, only this time you were collecting medals instead of rings. Wow, I can't believe they came up with that innovation in just 2 years. Tres Lunas and Maestro are not games in the traditional sense, but they come from a very sincere place. Oldfield stated he wanted them to bring people together, and he even made personal appearances in these releases to chat with his fans. A noble gesture, but still, these things are weird. Number 2, Queen, the Eye. In 1997, the video game world was introduced to an iconic game. It was a fantasy epic spread across multiple discs, each one containing more excitement than the last. Hang on, editor, why are you playing clips from Final Fantasy VII? I'm obviously talking about Queen the Eye. Released on 5 discs in 1997 and 1998, The Eye, which is spelt with an uppercase Y because why not, tells the story of a man named Dubrock, who battles against an all-powerful machine called The Eye to restore rock music to a land that has been stripped of all things creative. If you're thinking this sounds familiar to the Queen musical We Will Rock You, that's because large parts of this game's story were recycled for that show, believe it or not. Sadly, while We Will Rock You was extremely successful, The Eye was not. The game suffered from bad graphics, weak gameplay, and a lack of promotion. And when you've got 5 discs to shift, you need all the promotion you can get. Still, the game is soundtracked by the band, which is never a bad thing. Unless you don't like Queen, I suppose. In that case, it's probably not much of a selling point, let's be honest.
Well, I'm terribly sorry, dear.
And number 1, Kiss, Psycho Circus, The Nightmare Child. A game so big it needed 2 colons in its title, Kiss: Psycho Circus: The Nightmare Child, is a first-person shooter based on a comic book series, which was in turn based on the rock band and serial merchandisers Kiss. Yes, the band that put their names and licenses to lottery tickets, toilet paper, coffins, and air guitar strings has its own video game. Surprise, surprise. And it's not even their only video game, actually, but I'll be dead and cold in the ground before you catch me trying to pull together a full entry about Kiss Pinball. Jesus. The original comic series, which has only 1 colon in the title and is therefore only half as good, imagines the band members as 4 supernatural beings with elemental abilities. In the game, the story focuses around a Kiss tribute band that gets its own superpowers. Clearly they didn't get the power to get a real job. Who am I kidding? I do this for a living. Nightmare Child was popular amongst Kiss fans, which is sort of the bare minimum one would expect of a Kiss video game, but that's about the closest I can possibly get to giving it a compliment. But credit where it's due, it did at least achieve exactly what it set out to do: make Gene Simmons a load of money. Makes you feel all warm and fuzzy inside, doesn't it? I love video games.